Oi, oi, hello and welcome to another GG.CO.UK video, again, kindly sponsored by Boyle Sports. This time it's something, I say slightly different, quite very different, I think. It's a tier list of the British chasers who have an official rating of 155 or higher. I mean, there's actually quite a few that are in there, a few older sorts, but I think what's interesting in looking at it like this is we've got a long season ahead of us. It's not necessarily all about Cheltenham, although in here I will tout horses if I think they've got a chance for festival success. But it is probably quite nice to take a timestamp in the season to look ahead and think, these are the horses that are the top echelon of our chasing sphere. What are they likely to achieve this season? Going to get plenty wrong, might get a few things right in there as well, but it's nice to always have those little line in the sand. With this as well, I'll pull the visuals up on the screen so you can see what's going on with the tier list in there. I'll run through my thoughts, not quickly as in rushed, but as quickly as I can to keep you guys engaged if I can. But drop a comment below with where you would pitch these horses, how far off I am with some of them. I think a few will probably have on near enough bands, but, you know, I may get some of these outrageously different to what you're saying. I may make some sweeping comments that you think are outlandish, but hopefully, I'm not here to try and offend anyone. I'm here just to share my opinion. Hopefully, I've got a reasonable handle on all of these. So without further ado, I'm going to pull up the lovely tier list that's been created by my GGG editor. We've got the horses listed below. The visuals are quite small, so I'll peel up the horse's name as well. But let's just get through them. I'm going to do them in alphabetical order because that's how they are down the bottom. I think it gives us a nice blend of well because they're going to sit in different positions. First up on the list is the 169 rated 9-year-old Ahoy Senor. Now, look, he is already a two-time Grade 1 winner, novice hurdler and novice chaser, but that's it. In open company, the best he's done is sort of Grade 2 success. And if you look at last season as well, he was sort of out the back for quite a while in a lot of his races and just sort of looked a gone horse, didn't he? Now, a lot of his wins have come from sort of the springtime, January the 28th, I think it was, when he won the Cotswold Chase, which was the Grade 2. And then his wins have come later since. But he did win at Newbury when he slammed Mr. Incredible early in the season. He ran well in that old roan, although people were disputing whether he was ridden out or not. I think it was a fine ride. I think this horse has potentially got a Grade 2 win in him if Lucinda campaigns him correctly. I hope she's given up the ghost of trying to win a Grade 1 with the horse. There are a potential few or at least a couple of Grade 2 opportunities for him. Look, the Denman Chase at Newbury could end up being an absolute clash if horses like Brave Man's Game end up in there. But we could see these horses that battled against each other go in those types of races. But look, I think that's where he would definitely stand. He's 169 rated. Let's not take that away from him, albeit it's been a little while since he's won. Next up on the list is Al Dancer, who obviously won at 25 to 1 for Andrew Mountain, the Badger Beers, and he made his case on the fact that he's very good fresh. He's not going to be fresh again, is he? It's an 11-year-old now turning 12. I don't know how much longer this horse has got going, but they rolled the dice with him. Fair play to him, but as much as he's gone okay second time up, I couldn't have him. Long season ahead for Al Dancer, although ironically, it might not be. I don't know how many more races that particular horse would be having. Next up, Boot Hill, who did run in the slower chase behind John Bond. So some of these ratings could potentially be revised. There's a couple that slipped in. I don't think any of them will be taken out. But like I said, it's the 155 official rating over fences or higher. Now, Boot Hill has been a good horse. Beginning of the last season, those couple of handicaps when he won quite nicely, his marks come up to the 158. He's been running in around that number. The run that's behind John Bond at Sandown was all right, wasn't it? The run behind John Bond in the slower was all right as well, but I don't know where they go with him. Like, if they stick him back into handicaps, I think he can win there. If they keep trying his hand in graded company, they're just going to come up short, I think, over and over again. So look, I reckon a few placed efforts for him, especially if they jump back into handicap company. If they did end up deciding to keep going with Grade 1s, then it's going to be a long old season ahead for Boot Hill. But I trust that they'll make the decision now that they can't really win the races. Although getting second to John Bond, they could ruin it. So I'm teetering between these two of them, but I'll stick with a few placed efforts because we'll trust that the trainers will do the right things. Speaking of trainers doing the right things, Brave Man's Game. He's got to go for a Ryanair Chase at Cheltenham, surely. Now, I'm caveating this with, I'm not saying he's going to win a Ryanair Chase at Cheltenham. He's a 25 to 1 poke with Boyle Sports for that particular race. Now, he's had no win since that 2022 King George Triumph, which, of course, was a Grade 1 win. He was a bit unlucky last year, but I made the case for him in the Charlie All, which didn't quite pan out, and he didn't get the job done. You do wonder with the horse, I mean, it was a pretty lowly effort. You do wonder how far he slipped back. Look, Paul Nicholls will know what to do with him. Like I said, that Denman Chase, I think they've already started to lower their sights on him. So it makes me feel like, as much as I've quoted a Ryanair there and a price for it, I don't think he'd end up there. He could be a Grade 2 winner, but I think they've just got to accept now that he's probably not going to win a Grade 1. Races like the King George this year look like they could be even hotter than ever. I know LA Francais is not going to be there, but Grade 2 winner, I'd like to be hopeful for Brave Man's Game. I am worried, though, that he is going to just find some too good. And I'm a bit still sore after the Charlie Hall. So, look, I guess I could be harsh here. We could sit somewhere between those two. But I think the majority, especially from a betting perspective, I'm going to stick him in a few placed efforts. I wouldn't be betting Brave Man's Game with stolen money anytime soon. Right, Chianti Classico. We're moving on to, I guess, sort of like biggie kids. Now, the interesting thing with Chianti Classico is the fact that his train has already cited that the Grand National is going to be his aim. So, look, I don't think we'll be looking at a Cheltenham Festival winner, although he could take in the Ultima en route. That has been a great launch pad for it. Who knows? Like, he could be a winner of an Ultima and go there. I believe the weights will be published before then, so it wouldn't make a difference. He is already a Cheltenham Festival winner, of course, isn't he? He was dropped a couple of pounds for his Aintree run behind. I know the way you're thinking, he could be a Gold Cup contender himself. And then you think to yourself, his Ascot run, he was good, but I don't think Ascot's his best track. And I say good, he went up to 157. Like, he's got a good number now. Now, what they're doing this season will be interesting. I don't think he's going to be a Cheltenham Festival winner if they went there with the fact that it's, you know, the Ultima could be the target that he goes for. He ain't going to win a grade 1 or a grade 2. It's tricky to see how I pitch this, to be honest with you. If that was a big festival winner as opposed to just Cheltenham, I'd probably pitch him there because he could easily win a Grand National. In terms of the graded races, in terms of class, he won't be there. He will be handicapping for the season, won't he? So I'm going to leave him there, but with the caveat that I think Chianti Classico's got a chance for a Grand National. And I'll tell you what makes it sound sweeter as well. Long way out, lot of water to go under the bridge, big hard race to go and win, right? Similar sort of mould as a Correct Rambler. I've touched on that horse already, but Chianti Classico's 25 to 1 with Boyle Sports for a Grand National. And where I've loosely touched on Brave Man's Game for a Ryanair, he's 25 to 1 for that. If I said to you, you could have one bet on between those two, both 25 to 1 shots, I mean, Chianti Classico sits there. So look, I'm caveating this. It's not a Cheltenham Festival winner, although who knows, maybe he'll go and slam in an Ultima. I think he could potentially win a Grand National. So I'm being kind. I'm putting him up to the top of that. Next up, we have old man Edwardstone, who got his win in that game spirit, didn't he? I think Tom Bellamy was up top and just sent him on. That's sort of the level that he could be again. Like, he could potentially be a grade 2 winner, but I reckon his cards are marked now and everyone knows what his sort of tactic would be. I don't think he gets anything this season. I think for poor old Edwardstone, be a long old season ahead. Look, he definitely could get a few placed ever because there'll be smaller fields, but for the purpose of this, I do love Edwardstone. 164 rated he is as a 10-year-old. I don't think he's going to get away with it. I don't think he's getting the opportunities. Look, he might get a game spirit in there, might get a cheeky grade 2 out of that. I think it's going to be a long old season ahead for Edwardstone, especially after that sort of comeback run, because he was better in the race last year. Oh, maybe he ran all right. Maybe I'll stick him in a few placed efforts. Come on, there we go. We're trying to be decisive in here. Garw comes up next, who had a great run second in that Paddy Power Gold Cup behind Il Radoto. Look, might get revised tomorrow. His mark won't go lower than 155, which is where he's sat at the moment with him. The tricky thing with him is they're going to experiment with 3 miles again, and I don't know whether that's going to bring out the best in him and make him a potential festival candidate. Handicapping and get himself on a number again could be, who knows, like an Ultima type horse. There's other options as well out there, isn't there? Or whether he's going to end up slamming races and then end up potentially being able to go for these graded races. I think, unfortunately for Garw, they are going to step him up in trip. It was a very good run last time out, but I feel like that's where he's going to sit. I think he's going to, again, similar to Edwardstone, I think he's just got hard task given where he's rated. I'm sure his mark's going to go up as well. I think at best for Garw, we've seen a few placed efforts this season, but look, I would love to see him do better than that. Speaking of Paddy Power Gold Cup, Jinnies Destiny. I don't know how this horse went off as short as he did for the race, given the fact that it's very obvious that he needs his first time run. But when that's a known fact and he's still so strong, you sort of maybe question, not necessarily whether the horse had a chance of winning it or not, but you sort of question, actually, hang on a minute, lots of people think this horse has a proper chance. Now, look, I'll bring us back to the Brave Man's Game Charlie Hall Chase saga. I thought that the price Brave Man's Game was being odds against was a good price. Relative terms to Jinnies Destiny here, I thought sort of 3 to 1 about Jinnies Destiny was probably like a fair price for me wise, but obviously conditions weren't ideal. So in relative terms to Brave Man's Game, that would have been the same as me probably saying I think Brave Man's Game should be a 4 to 6 shot. So look, while I was happy to take Jinnies Destiny on there, look, pulled up 155 official rating. He might get dropped by the handicapper tomorrow, so he might not have even been in this list, but I'm grateful that he is. December Gold Cup comes up at Cheltenham. Last year, the only time I bet Jinnies Destiny was first time up when he sort of bombed out. He was very, very, very good after that and very progressive. Now, look, he was an 8-year-old, a bit better than well, a bit older than the other typical novices for last season. So his line of progression might not be as sharp and as steep as anybody else. But look, there's definite races. He's gone off 3 for a Paddy Power Gold Cup of 155. Like I say, his mark may even be dropped. I think this horse goes and wins races after. It's tricky in here because obviously we've got it as graded winners. Maybe it would have been easier if we put graded winners in there, or handicap winner as the mark in there next after. But I think Jinnies Destiny would be the type of horse that will win a big handicap this season. I guess that's similar to what I'd say for Chianti Classico. So, but I guess for the purpose of this one as well, I'm going to go Cheltenham Festival winner. Like, I know we've said it's not all about Cheltenham because we know that. I'm going to bang Jinnies Destiny in there. Although we've got it as Cheltenham Festival, right? If you're watching this, you'll know that I'm putting him up there. Chianti Classico could win an Ultima. I mean, he could win an Ultima, of course, but I think he might go close to the Grand National. Jinnies Destiny will win something like the Paddy Power Gold Cup in December. Definitely not called that. It's called the December Gold Cup, but big race in him anyway. And who knows, if things don't quite go to plan in the early start of the season, he could end up in a handicap at Cheltenham. So that could be true. Now, Grey Dawning is very interesting. Betfair Chase coming up this weekend. He's only rated 157 officially. He was dropped £1 for his run at Aintree. There's only been one winner of a Betfair Chase that's been under 160, and that was a 33-1 poke, and that was when Kauto Star fell. So he'll be doing stuff that historically hasn't been done. And while he has been very impressive, and of course he was a Cheltenham Festival winner last season, beating Jinnies Destiny, his season is going to be very differently campaigned. He will be going for the Betfair Chase. If all goes well in there, he'll be going for a King George. He's going to be trained and run like he's a Gold Cup horse. Look, could he win a Betfair Chase on Saturday, given he's a 7-4 poke? Absolutely, which is why you have to look at this and think, look, you sit him as a Grade 1 winner. The stats are against him, though. The field may not be the strongest, but there are going to be some good, highly rated horses in there. Now, for open company, when it comes to Grade 2s, if they've got Gold Cup ambitions, they're not going to go there, are they? They're not going to be going for Grade 2. So, look, it's a question of, do I think that Grey Dawning could win a Betfair Chase or a King George? Because I don't think he's going to win a Gold Cup, but who knows? That would be where you pitch him as a Grade 1 winner. Or is he going to be so highly tried in those Grade 1s, a Betfair Chase and a King George, for example, that he ends up his season with just a few placed efforts? Look, I'm going to be a glass half full kind of guy in this episode. I'm a tiny bit worried about him in the Betfair Chase. I've got to be honest. Ground, not having the prep run, even though they wanted to have it, is a negative. I know he'll get him as sound as he possibly can. Stats are against him to win that race as well. It does concern me, but I could see him going well at Kempton or something like that. At some point this season, he's going to get good conditions. And if we've got to wait all the way through to Aintree again, where I know he was beaten and he wasn't so good, but if they have to skip Cheltenham or whatever it is, whatever they have to do with him, I feel like they could get a Grade 1 out of him. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but he's favourite for a Betfair Chase on Saturday. I'm hardly being outlandish, am I? Right, let's carry on and move our way through. Hang in there. We've got a 10-year-old coming in. This will not take very long. Look, ran all right in the Cotswolds Chase, not Cotswolds Chase, the Charlie Hall Chase. 157 rated. He's back down a couple of pounds after that run. I think he's a couple of pounds higher than his last sort of winning mark. I'm sure the trainer could probably get a win with him, but he was doing all his running over the sun when he was getting the ground. So I say long season ahead, much like our dancer. Will we even see him? I don't know, but in terms of being competitive, he's a nice horse, but I don't see it for him. Hitman coming up. Now, he's an interesting candidate because 21 runs he's had over fences, 3 wins, but he's had 8 seconds. He's had 4 thirds as well, I think. Pulled up when he bled in the King George, right? And that was on soft ground. Then he ran in the Denman Chase that I've already talked about, where he was behind Zanza on good ground where he should have won, and then he sort of flopped. And you think to yourself, well, maybe he's just not that good. But then he's run behind Shishkin in a Betfair in the Denman Chase last year. Was actually pretty nice. Now, I think he's still a bit unexposed at that 3-mile trip. The middle trips are a little bit tricky for him, isn't there? Because they got horses like Pictory and like Banbridge will be dotted over or whatever. But look, I think there's a chance that Hitman actually could win I don't want to say a soft Grade 1, but if they got lucky with him, I think he's got more ability than his mark of 157. At what point do you keep going with handicaps with him off of 157, like the proper competitive one? So I sit him somewhere in the bucket of it depends. It depends if he gets his mark, or if he starts going in handicaps. Like, I think he's got a bit of a squeak. We know that he gets there or thereabouts. He doesn't win enough races, so it's hard to pitch him in here. And it's probably the safe option to put him down as a few placed efforts, whether that is in Grade 1s or whether that is in handicap company. I believe a bit more in Hitman than I think probably I should do. So I'd be sitting somewhere with the fact that he could be a grade 2 winner. I think Hitman one of these days will get his head back in front, and I'm going to show a bit of confidence and faith in the boy. I'm sure that will disappoint a few of you, or potentially be a difference of opinion for a few of you. John Bond, of course, won the slower chase this year. I don't think it was as good as last year, but last year's slower chase win was as good a performance as I think I've seen from the horse. He's a phenomenal horse, isn't he? He's long lived in the shadows of Duvan when he was a novice hurdler and a novice chaser, because he didn't quite get the grade 1 success that we were kind of hoping for him there. But last couple of seasons puts him bang there as a champion chase winner, isn't he? Look, the ranking of doing this, I'm going to stick him right to the front because I think he can win a champion chase. It's going to be a hotly contested race. It always is. But imagine the story, the redemption for his 1-4 favourite brother Duvan, who did his hip in the race. I'm believing in John Bond. Again, I know he's probably favourite for the champion chase at this stage, but I think he can do it. I'd like to believe. Next, we move on to, I actually thought for a second it could have been Gosham, but it's not. It's another horse for the Gary Moore team. 7-year-old, 156 rated Nasal Lam, and he's had more runs than some of these older horses. He's had 17 chase runs. You'd think he'd be older, wouldn't you? Of course, he's a Welsh national winner. Pulled up thrice since then, and he was miles beaten in the other race. It questions whether he's been bottomed. Look, I'm sure the trainers are smart enough to put him back and peel something out, but a long season ahead for Nasal Lam. I don't see anything in him to suggest that he's anywhere near back to being a horse that wants to be racing, competitive, let alone be winning a race. Now, Protectorat, who I gave a bit of a chance to in the Paddy Power, ran all right. I think he came 6th, but I think it'll be a mark that, or a performance anyway, that might see his mark come down. Now, he did win a Ryanair last year. He was, of course, well fancied for that, I would say. Like, I think the right people, I'm not saying that because I put him, but I think the right people knew his profile and things sat. Everything fell into place for him to win that race last year, and I'm glad that he did. But I just think that they're a bit stuck with this horse now, and maybe it will be all paths leading back there. But he's 9 turning 10. I think, unfortunately, for Protectorat, I think he's got a handicap in him somewhere, but I think it could be a long season ahead for him. Look, it could be a few placed efforts. Again, I want to be kind on there, but I think I was expecting a little bit more in that Paddy Power run, and I'm probably being harsh. Look, I'm going to be harsh. Protectorat, long season ahead, I think, unfortunately, for your old boy, but I think you've done enough, right? You've won a Betfair Chase, you've won a Ryanair. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope he's like an envoy and keeps it going, but I think he's really tricky to place now, and for that reason, I'm going to have to stick him in long season ahead. Look, I do hope that he does better than I'm pitching him there. Royal Pagy, 10-year-old, 165 rated, put in 170s RPR to win the Betfair Chase last year. That is where he's going, right? And with the question marks and concerns potentially about Grey Dawning as a favourite in that race, you think Royal Pagy could have a chance. But look, I don't know how much rain there's due at Haydock this week. It's good ground at the moment. Good to soft is as quick as the horse has run on. Beat Brave Man's Game. He wasn't really trying in the race last year, which again is a really harsh thing to say, and does run really well at Haydock. But at this age, to be winning a Betfair Chase, I just don't think it's doable for him. So look, I don't know where he might go. I don't know whether he might end up being like a grade 2 type horse, but he is 10, 10 and 11. And while he is a good horse, his options are a bit limited. So for him, I think as best as it could be would be a few placed efforts. But, you know, who knows? Second in a Betfair Chase would be no bad season, would it? Let's be honest. Right, Stage Start. Ran well in the old drone at Aintree as far as I'm concerned. I know his favourite. A lot of people would think he should have run better and say that he doesn't particularly like Aintree. That may be true, but off of the mark that he was running off, 162 is officially rated now, was a good performance. Look, he loves Cheltenham, we know that. They're limited in terms of options where they could send him other than the things like a Paddy Power. Where he would have performed in there this time round, we don't know. But look, things like the December Gold Cup I've already touched on. I think Jinnies Destiny would go down that route. But you'd think with Stage Star that there are opportunities with this horse. Now, look, I don't think Aintree's necessarily the wrong place for him to go. The one thing I would say with him, though, is he's very unexposed, right? Every race over obstacles, so either hurdling or over fences, has been around that middle trip. It's not that deep, especially on the British side of the sea, for 2-mile chases. And John Bond can only run in so many of them. So you wonder whether if they do a bit of smart moving with him, whether he could pick up a grade 2 chase, whether he's quick enough to do it, I don't really know. I don't think he really stays the 3 miles, but I just wonder at the age that he is, 8, turning 9 now, this season, do you try and figure out and find out a few things with him this term, drop him in trip, step him up in trip, and then get a feel for actually he is just a bang 2.5 miler, and then you stick him in a plate off of a lower mark. Look, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic with Stage Star. I reckon that there could be something to come from Stage Star. That's less predictable. But look, this is me relying on the fact that they will try different trips and that his mark might come down. So I don't know where to stick him. It probably would be a long season ahead if he's campaigned the way that I think him. I reckon he's got a performance in him. I don't think he's got a big festival win performance in him off the mark he's at the moment. But depending on how his campaign would be there, I'd love to see him back somewhere. Who knows where he goes? I feel like I'll probably sit him in here. I'd probably sit him in the stace of a few placed efforts, but I would put him much higher up. I feel like he has got potential day in the sun again, stage star, but it might not. It just might not happen for him this time round. Like I say, I thought the Aintree run was quite good. The real whacker, Patrick Neville's the next one that comes up. Of course, won the Charlie Hall. Good ground has been essential to this horse. The rain kept coming for him on other events last season, which didn't quite work out. They're going to try him for a Cotswold Chase. Probably they might think about King George. They said. I think ultimately they might run him in a Gold Cup. I think he's a bit stumped. Look, if it's good ground, might have a chance at a Cotswold Chase. I reckon it's going to be a long season ahead for the real whacker, I'm afraid. Look, it was potentially a turning point from the start of the season, but he's had his day in the sun. I think, unfortunately, it's going to be hard for him to continue to do that because as much as Brave Man's Game is in behind him, there was a lot of older horses like your Sam Browns and Hang in there that were close enough to make me think he's going to struggle at the top table. Next up is 300 through 5, who, of course, was a Grand National contender for last year. The connections wanted him to go there, and you'd think that would probably be the plot for him again this year, but he's like 9 rising 10. Does like nicer ground. I think he's handicapped to be held. I don't know where they're going to fit with him. I think, unfortunately, it's a long season ahead for 300 through 5. Sometimes you don't get 2 bites of the cherry. I think last year was probably his chance to do bits, but I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong. Right, Thunder Rock for Ollie Murphy, 156 official rated. He's an 8-year-old. This is a chaser's post, right? So I will talk about him, but it doesn't look like he's going to go back over fences. We're supposed to run the West Yorkshire Hurdle, was pulled out on account of the ground. Is in at Ascot over 2.5. The Yard have got Strong Leader as a festival horse in for 3 miles. He's not going to beat Turpy, but he might go and win at Aintree again. I feel like with Thunder Rock, 2.5-ish miles, they could go and win. I think it's the Liverpool Hurdle or something like that. That's the 2.5 miler at Aintree. That could be him, and that is a Grade 1 over hurdles. But for the purpose of what we've got in this sphere, he might just be Grade 2-y type horse. But look, his mark's 149. He could end up being a horse that's like a Coral Cup type, which then puts him into a potential Cheltenham Festival winner. If he just goes and does bits, which I imagine he'll win over hurdles, then he's probably going to end up a Grade 2 winner this season. Yeah, stick him in there. But like, I could easily see him getting in a Coral Cup and being competitive. But is that really the race that you want to be backing Ollie Murphy horse with respect? Right. Finally, Northern Raider, Tommy's Oscar does well on that Northern circuit. 152, I think, is his last couple of handicap wins. He probably needs his mark to come down. So for him, he's going to win a race again. It was a Grade 3. I think he won at Ayr. So it could be that happens again. I think for him, it's going to have to be potentially not even a few place efforts. I think it's a long season ahead with him planning for something for later on in the year. So I'm going to be potentially harsh, but I'll stick him well up the pecking order because it might be a long season ahead for him. But I think that Tommy's Oscar in the spring in that Northern circuit could go okay. He could potentially get some wins. So look, long season ahead for him, long season ahead for all of us. We've got some good action that will be coming out throughout the season. I'm not sure what your guys' thoughts are on this type of content. I know it's very different to something else, but we want to try a new things to see what comes out there. Nice to share opinions, nice to talk horses. So as I say, drop comments below with what you think of any of these, any concepts that you'd like the idea of. Real good racing coming up. There'll be a few more trendy videos coming out as we move on into the Cheltenham period, into the Christmas period, and then soon it probably will be Cheltenham. But for now, thank you for your support. Like the video if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As I say, drop comments below if you're that way inclined, and we will see you again for the weekend watch this Thursday.